Now we begin with the Democratic Party rallying around an illegal alien who is an alleged gang member and accused domestic abuser. Yesterday, your favorite Democratic Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen conducted a wellness check on Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Of course, plenty of photographs were taken, and if you look closely at this one, you can see drinks adorned with cherries and salted rims. President Trump reacted to the visit by calling Van Hollen a, quote, fool and a grandstander who is begging for attention. Van Hollen says he'll do everything in his power to get Abrego Garcia back to the U.S., and he's not alone. His fellow Democrats are going all in. Just listen to James Carville.
We got to keep fighting this. I think this is worthy of being on the top agenda of things that we're going to fight over, is get this guy back home.
The White House responding with this post, writing, quote, "We are not the same." And under those words are two photos. You can see they're here side by side. President Trump with Rachel Morin's mom, Patty, and Van Hollen with Abrego Garcia. Homeland Security Advisor and Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller summed it up last night on Hannity.
We've reached a point in American politics where we have one party led by President Donald Trump that fights for Americans, and a second party, I guess led by AOC, that fights for illegal aliens. You have the entire machinery of the Democrat Party using all of its power not to fight for lower costs, as President Trump is, or better trade deals, as President Trump is, or lower taxes, as President Trump is, but to fight to bring this illegal alien with all those horrific crimes and allegations and history against him back to the United States, where he can do what? He can commit additional acts that threaten the safety of the American people.
Congressman, tell us how that can be, because he's absolutely right.
We don't owe this guy anything. He is a resident of El Salvador, evidently came into this country illegally. The White House keeps telling us that he has, these affiliations, that he's done these different things. We don't have, what we have a higher moral obligation to do? Take care of the people that have come here legally and lawfully. Those people always get forgotten. The victims always get forgotten. Americans always get forgotten. They go to the mat for somebody who is in this country illegally. That's the allegation. That's what the White House is telling us. That's where we have a higher moral obligation. People who come in through the front door and try to do it legally and lawfully.
Can I be honest for a second? My worst nightmare, what I thought was going to happen after this last election, is that Democrats were actually going to see the light. I thought, stupid me, that they would actually, sort of hold a flame to the candle and give us a run for our money at midterms and actually see what the American people had mandated, which was safety and security and prioritizing America first. They've gone off, they're in the opposite direction. They are doubling down on this.
Yeah, and I think, there's a way for Democrats to have an argument about due process. This is not it. And, it's like I look at Senator Van Hollen, I'm like, why aren't you championing some of the kids who have been lost, like the hundreds of thousands of kids who have been trafficked and abandoned into the system that has no way of tracking where they are? Why aren't, and there was a hysterical post on Babylon Bee where it was like, remaining soldiers in Hamas custody dressing as MS-13 gang members, hoping senators come to save them. And it's like, that's how absurd this has gotten. And also, like, if this is the hill you're going to die on, if you look at your working class constituents, they're not marching up that hill with you. And that's why Democrats' approval ratings have plummeted and are below 30%, because, these are the causes they choose to champion. And while there may be something worthwhile in here philosophically, the grandstanding does very little to the working class people who feel so incredibly disconnected from the party, because they don't look at Chris Van Hollen and go, that's a guy who's going to fight for me. Absolutely not.
That's why I was so surprised, Tommy. I guess I shouldn't be, but with James Carville's comments, because, look, he said some outlandish things in the past, but for him to say, yeah, the ordinary Americans need to see that we're fighting for them, meaning Abrego Garcia, was so out of left field, and I'm not quite sure, for example, in the state of Maryland, whose test scores of the public school children have plummeted and who so many are federal employees. I mean, the list goes on of how better Van Hollen could steward his time, but they are doubling down on this.
They needed a martyr. They needed to put a face to their resistance, and they've chosen this gentleman to be the face of their resistance, which is really quite sad. They're scraping the bottom of the moral barrel here with this individual. But the photos, the optics of this, I thought after that press briefing, when we saw Patty Morin, when we saw AG Pam Bondi put out the records and the details of this is why we believe he is an MS-13 member, when we saw that report from the Tennessee Star about him possibly having links to human trafficking in my home state of Tennessee, I thought Democrats are going to reverse course on this. They're going to go quiet because this is becoming, overwhelming. But no. They've decided we are so far deep in this narrative that we are just going to keep it up and we're going to hope that people do believe he is a Maryland father. And then you look at these optics, it looks like they were on a date on The Bachelor with the drinks and the optics and the photo and the Abrego Garcia sitting there in a shirt from the Gap and his hat. Again, this is their man. This is their martyr. They are so far deep in this hole, they're going to go the distance.
Yeah, even the president of El Salvador weighing in and posting on X, saying that, they're enjoying margaritas. I mean, we don't know what they were enjoying, but the whole point is they were mocking how ludicrous, how audacious it was of a political stunt. So talk to me, though, about the efficacy of Trump's messaging. So Stephen Miller brilliantly summing it up. That photograph, a photo's worth 1,000 words. Talk to us about how the White House will continue to sort of highlight that big chasm between how the Democrat Party sees Americans and how they're fighting for and how the Republican Party does.
It's night and day. You think that you're in two different countries. I mean, I look at President Bukele, and he is not even American, and he seems to be our bigger proponent than the senator. And he's saying, look, we're not sending him back to the United States. El Salvador's like, we're not going to do that. And Attorney General Pam Bondi's like, look, if he's not sending him back, this is really a moot point. We don't need to worry. But it is that very stark contrast. And I find it very, very troubling, especially as someone who believes in enforcing laws. Since when do we have elected officials like senators that are promoting and helping this individual to be in our country and wanting to bring him back? I wish that he would fight that hard for his own constituents. I mean, Rachel Morin and Kayla Hamilton, and the way that he never even interacted with these families. This angel mother who was out there, she is so confused. Well, we're with you because we are all confused because it does not make sense. It is not right. And I don't think that's what the state of Maryland, I don't believe what they want in their elected officials.
Yeah, I did try to look up if the senator had ever met with victims of violent crimes families, and I couldn't find an example of one, but maybe they're out there, but I couldn't find any.
Yeah, no, look, I had a chance to talk to a sheriff there. Van Hollen's never been there, never done a ride-along, never done anything like this. And besides, Baltimore is working so well. There's no need to spend any more time there. They got that solved. That education, crime, everything's going fine in Baltimore. You better go spend some time in El Salvador and bring some people home.
Here's the thing. If the strategy wasn't actually impacting Americans terribly, I would be sitting here popping popcorn and laughing. But the problem is that stunts like that, it actually hurts American. People are dying over this. Yeah. But this guy will hopefully learn his lesson soon. Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.